Hey guys, I want to tell you something that is just a small thing, or it may seem a small thing, but I go with the wisdom of Jesus also, that says that if you do something good in small, then it also translates in a bigger picture. Okay, if you're good in small, then you are also good in big. And this is ethically speaking, but when you have also facts and truth, then if you're correct in small things, small truths, so to say, then also this can translate into more truth. You can go from one small truth into more truth. That should make sense. If you open the door of one truth, then you go into more truth, obviously, but if you open already doors of lies, then you just find yourself into more lies, right? So you have to be correct about small things, such as this. The line at 23 degrees 27 minutes north latitude is named the Tropic of Cancer because early in history, when the line was named, the sun lay in the constellation Cancer on June 21. So that's what Google gave me when I asked Google, why is it called the Tropic of Cancer? And I did this not because I don't know why it is called like that, but because I want to know what is Google giving the people, so that then by this I can analyze and help you how to get to more truth. And here they're already hinting towards the fact that in the past the sun lay in the constellation of Cancer on June 21, and this was in fact about 500 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, okay? This is when they decided to use this expression, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, for those latitudes around which, or between which, the sun is oscillating around the equator, okay? The sun goes from north to south during the year, creating the seasons, oscillating around the equator between those two lines, the Tropic of Cancer, the old expressions, and the Tropic of Capricorn. And now I am telling you the new expressions, the correct ones, which is that it's actually called, or it should be called, the Tropic of Gemini and the Tropic of Sagittarius, respectively. Tropic of Gemini replaces the Tropic of Cancer, the June solstice, and the Tropic Sagittarius replaces the Tropic of Capricorn for the winter solstice. And if you have no knowledge about anything of this and you wonder what is solstice, then I really have to start from the beginning. I can't go into deep detail because I want to keep this short, because it may be more impactful. But in general, it's when the sun is at its high peak and its low peak, from a European point of view or from a North American point of view, okay? Horizontally, right? The sun is moving and it's creating the seasons, and that's what every kid knows. So we're using expressions for these things that are old, that are outdated, because they do not align anymore with the physical truth. And the physical truth is that there is a mechanism in the sky, right? There is the sun, there is the moon, there are celestial bodies, there are the stars, the fixed stars and the wandering stars. And they are moving constantly, right? And there are cycles to this, and they are not always the same. They are moving in different velocities. That means that nothing is always the same in that sense, okay? So what usually people know about is that there are these 12 constellations, the zodiac, the star signs or sun signs, through which the sun is moving during the year. There are 12 of them, and people have decided, elite people have decided, to make 12 of these constellations, to have 12 of these constellations, and respectively have 12 months for each constellation. And they decided this and then mandatory school brought it amongst the masses. That's why they believe in these star constellations, or that's why they use them. They may not actually believe in constellations, but they may use them for communication and navigation. There is a synchronicity happening throughout the whole world at this day and age already, that if you go to Argentina, they know the same star constellations as in China. So you know there is a saming going on, you know, a synchronicity in this information. But you have to understand that these constellations are not written in stone. These are man-made concepts. You could also just have 8 constellations. You could have different constellations. It just depends on how you would be drawing lines connecting those stars, right? If you feel happy, if you feel really freaky today, then you go out there, you look at the stars and you draw your own lines, and you make a whole map of constellations, different constellations, new constellations, and you would find 10 other people that you teach those constellations to, and then you have a group of people that only know about your constellations, right? And then you could create a whole nation from that, and your nation would have different constellations in the sky, or be programmed with different constellations than the rest of the world, basically like that. Same with language. This is a sort of language in the sky, right, that people have agreed upon, the zodiac. It's not written in stone. It's interchangeable, it's replaceable, just as I can translate German into English and English into German. There was one nation that speaks German, there is another nation that speaks English, and they have learned to translate, right? What's always the same is the truth behind these things, behind words and behind the constellations, which is that there are actually those stars out there, okay, these little lights. That's a fact. And that's just a side note to understand that elite have decided that to be. Okay, that's why we are using it accordingly for communication purposes. But some things are not up to date, and that's when it comes to the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, because they should be called, if we follow that theory that the sun lay in the constellation of some zodiac, then we have to update that zodiac, because the sun is moving across those 12 zodiacs during the year, but it's also moving one further each 100, 200, 500 years. I don't know the exact cycle of this, but there are different cycles to this. There is the monthly cycle, there is the yearly cycle, there is the seasonal cycle, but then there are cycles that are beyond 1 year, okay? There are cycles that go over 500, over 2,000 years, over 20,000 years, okay? That's what they say. So when we look at the truth, we know that now on June 21 in 2024, the sun is in the constellation of Gemini. The correct expression for this latitude has to be the Tropic of Gemini, and we would have to update that expression each time the sun is actually transitioning from one zodiac to the next, and that would be then the correct version, right? Because we're still talking about the truth behind this, right? A certain star constellation, certain stars that are behind the sun. And to make it clearer to you visually also, is I have this from a website called Stellarium, from Stellar Stars, stellarium.com. You can look it up. And on June 21 the sun is here, and behind the sun you can see the constellations Leo, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus. So the sun is actually in Gemini, closer to Taurus than to Cancer, on June 21, summer solstice. And that's the truth. That's why we should call the latitude which the sun is above the Tropic of Gemini these days. And for the winter solstice you get the Tropic of Sagittarius today. Okay, not Capricorn, because Capricorn is there. So it has moved from here to there in a cycle of a few hundred years. Okay, so this is also interesting when it comes to sun signs and what people believe about the sun signs or the zodiac, the star signs. They believe they are a certain sun sign because they were born at a certain month. And then you go to these charts, the 12 zodiacs with dates, and people know their birthday usually, and then they just look up the dates here. It says, okay, I'm born May 29, so I look up May 22 to June 21, okay, I must be Gemini. Or my star sign or my sun sign, according to my birthday, is supposed to be Gemini, but that's not the truth. Okay, because the truth is that this whole thing has shifted and that chart is not up to date anymore, yet people use it still, and they base all their astrological readings off of this false chart, which is ridiculous, because on top of that, astrology is a deception, is a trickery, fooling people, and on top of that, their sun signs, of which they base off their guidance, spiritual guidance, and their omens and soothsayings, or whatever you want to call these things, horoscopes. They are not using the correct sun sign for starters. So they're basing off their readings off of false sun signs in the first place, physically false, right? Not aligning with the truth. And then on top of that, they believe in spiritual deception in general. Okay, so if you believe to be Gemini because we were born on May 29, you have to go -1 and realize, okay, you are actually Taurus. And when I say you are, it's wrong also. I should say, or you should not identify with any of these signs, as in I am a certain star sign. You should say, at my birthday the sun was in a certain constellation, because it's out there, it's going on out there. It has no effect on your life actually. It's just nice to know that, okay, on your day of birth the physical world was constellated in a certain way, but there is no spiritual storytelling going on, just like the factual thing of astronomy, astronomical thing. And so when you use these charts just for these purposes, because I don't recommend any astrology, but for the factual purposes, then these are already wrong. And people who believe they are the sun, they have the sun sign Leo, they have to go -1 and say, okay, realize that they are actually born in Cancer if they weren't born 500 years ago. And usually they were just born in the last 100 years, okay? So this does not apply anymore. And it should make sense now when we go back here. Let's go to the summer solstice, June 21. And I sound a little bit hurrying because I have to ward off mosquitoes here while I'm talking. But here's the sun, okay? It's closer to Taurus than to Cancer actually, but this should be the Tropic of Cancer. Now we're updating this expression and we call it the Tropic of Gemini, because that's the truth. And people who are born on June 21, their sun sign would be Gemini. But people who are born 10 days earlier, or let's say in May 29, they have to go back to Taurus. Okay, because the sun is coming from there, it's moving into this direction slowly. Okay, so going back 20 days, you end up in Taurus. So when we go back to this chart on May 29, it gives us Gemini, but that's incorrect. In truth, the constellation in which the sun is in is Taurus. And you can do this for any. If you believe to be, I have to change it. If you believe to have the sun sign Pisces, then you are Aquarius. Then you have Aquarius. You see how we are programmed to also with speech identify with these things. It's crazy. But we shall not identify with any of these things, okay? Because this is just, it's a fun fact basically to your life, right? It's a fun fact to know, okay, the sun was in a certain constellation, but it has no spiritual meaning, okay? Because the truth is in you. It's not happening out there, okay? The spirit is in you, not out there. It's just a fun fact. So if people believe that, if people base off their belief system or their lives off of these constellations that are replaceable, right, that people just have decided upon for navigation purposes, and telling time purposes, having a calendar, then they're already being fooled. They're already being deceived. They already fall for spiritual lies. And they have to realize to not identify with any of these zodiacs. Especially if it's the incorrect one. Okay, and in that sense, don't go to astrologers and don't do these readings. I warn you, I warn anyone out there, because it's a huge business through which people deceive others into giving them money for those readings and spiritual guidance. When the truth is, and the truth says, call no one your father, master, teacher on earth, but only one is your master, teacher and father, which is the Father in heaven. That's the truth. So also Catholicism is a pagan institution. I hate to break it to you, but that's the truth, because they call the head of their organization Holy Father, while the word says call no one your father on earth. Okay, and when you go to an astrologer who's doing these readings, then you believe that this guy has some connection to something that you don't have, right? Which is a lie. When you go to these people for advice or anything, then it's like your master, it's like your teacher, spiritual master, teacher, spiritual guide, and it's wrong. Okay, your only guide and master and teacher and father shall be the Father in heaven, and that's what people have to realize spiritually, to then also go to him, to the Father, for advice, for guidance, for these things, not to other people, not to the Pope, not to your parents, not to a mountain, not to a celestial body, not to the sun, not to any of the wandering stars, not to a building, impressive cathedrals or whatever, but to the Father in heaven through the Spirit. And the Spirit dwells in each body. So you have the Spirit, why don't you use it? Okay. That's the truth, but liars will not teach you this. Liars will want to be called Holy Father, liars will want to be called some sort of teacher, master, worshipful master, or whatever. They want to be called on earth because they pretend to be gods before other men. They pretend to hold knowledge and secrets that are withheld from you, which is not the truth. Because the truth is that God holds everything before any man. Okay, so if you want to know something, then go to God, bring it to God, and let Him teach you. But we were born into this whole world system that is huge around us. It's not a small thing anymore. It is huge at this point, and you can see that such unimportant thing actually, like the zodiac, the star constellation, is across the whole world it's synchronized. If you go to Argentina, they know the same star constellations as in China, not because these are actually written in the sky, no, but because they were taught to the people as these constellations with which to communicate. Okay, their minds were programmed with that, just like a language, just like you program people with a language. Simple as that. So you can see how big this world has already become, and we were born into this. So obviously most people are still mentally and spiritually within that sort of a student-teacher relationship amongst men, right? When the truth is that we shall become students to God in heaven, to the Father in heaven, who shall be our only master and teacher, healer, scientist, expert, you name it. Okay, and that doesn't mean that people out there don't have knowledge or something, or cannot be knowledgeable about something, but we shall not call them any of these expressions, not give them any of these titles. But in the world it's being practiced as that, and it's deceiving. That's my point here. Okay.